G'day legends, Hylianstagram here, but you can call me Matt, and welcome back to a new video. Welcome to our full National Shiny Living Dex, Own OT, 1,326 out of 1,326 boxable, shiny huntable Pokemon you can get with your name as the original trainer. That's a bit of a mouthful. To start off with, I want to tick off a few dot points just so you know what you're in for. To start off, all shiny Pokemon seen here do originate from the Mainline series games. You can't see any of the ugly G symbol on these Pokemon. I have a separate list for them, but everything you're going to see here originate from the Mainline series games. From the Game Boy Advance to the Nintendo DS to the Switch, etc., all of them come from the Mainline games. I'll explain Meltan and Melmetal a little bit later and how you can get rid of the G from the box that they're sitting in. Next, most of the Gen 1 and Gen 2 Pokemon you're going to see here, they do originate from the Virtual Console on the 3DS. Basically, if you have a shiny parent Pokemon, let's say a shiny Ditto, you have a 1 in 64 chance of breeding a shiny from eggs. There's no abilities in Gen 1 and 2, so you can't have Flame Body or anything to make the eggs go faster, but it's the only generation where if you have a shiny parent, the shiny parent will actually matter and give you better shiny odds. In the case of Gen 2, 1 in 64, which is, you know, one of the best shiny odds you can ever get in any of the games, which is amazing. Most of the Pokemon from Gens 3 to 8, they were either bred or caught in Sword or Shield if they were featured in those games, or Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon if they weren't in Sword or Shield. Basically, I bought Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon around 2020 when the lockdowns were starting, and I already had Shield, which I bought a few months earlier. So when the lockdown started, I was basically playing 3 games at once. I was doing Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon at once, as well as Shield. We were doing raids, we were doing eggs. This was before I was a YouTuber or a streamer or anything, but we were getting about a shiny a day on average. Basically, if you're breeding 3 consoles at once, you're gonna get a shiny eventually, right? And in multiple days, we were having multiple shinies. So that really shot up the total of mons we had very quickly. So 2020, 2021 was an amazing year for shinies for me. Most of the shiny legendaries, they come from Ultra Wormholes in Gen 7. And in the case of Solgaleo, Lunala, Necrozma, the Tapus, and the 2 Zygardes from Generation 8 in Dynamax Adventures, because you couldn't shiny hunt them in Ultra Wormholes. I think there was an event for a few of those on Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon, but you couldn't get those as your name as your original trainer. So once again, everything you see in this list are my Pokemon, me as the original trainer, Matthew. So just to start off here, if you see all these Pokemon here, it's going to have Matthew written on them, which is very handy because it's very good for my OCD. Now, the only Pokemon in this list that come from Pokemon's Legends Arceus are the Pokemon that were originally introduced in Pokemon's Legends Arceus. So if you think Shinx and Bidoof and all that, anything of that was old before that game came out, I already had. So when Pokemon Legends Arceus came out, I only needed the new ones, like Weirdeer or Ursaluna or... what else is that? And in the case of Pokemon that originate from Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, the only Pokemon in this list that come from those games are the Pokemon that were newly introduced in those games, as well as some of the Vivillon forms, pretty much all of Vivillon forms minus the Australian River pattern, which I already had in Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon. Then everything else I shiny hunted in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet because I didn't want to reset my save file a billion times and change my region on the DS to be able to shiny hunt them. That's a mess. I'm glad they introduced the postcard method with Pokemon Go. And despite Pokemon Scarlet and Violet being the easiest games to shiny hunt on, I was the fool who shiny hunted most of these before those games were ever introduced. So I took the long way and obviously did all the breeding in Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon, or Shield, etc. The 1 in 512 Masuda odds, as opposed to, you know, sandwich making, spawning 15 Pokemon at a time, etc. It's so much better and faster in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet if you're starting out, and it's a lot more fun if I'm being honest. So, you know, if you're new to this, if you're new to shiny hunting and you don't know where to start, I'd say Scarlet and Violet or PLA are the best Pokemon games to start shiny hunting because it's fun and it's rewarding. And then there's the older games where it's harder, but also pretty much rewarding as well because, you know, it's more work involved. So let's start with Kanto. And in the case of Kanto, if you've got all your Pokemon, your Alolan Pokemon, your Galarian Pokemon, all the other forms, we've got them all in the first few boxes. If you count all of them together, there are currently 207 possible Pokemon you can shiny hunt with your name as your original trainer. Now, we'll go through them quickly. We've got, obviously, you know, Bulbasaur, Ivysaur. I got these ones, again, you see the little Game Boy logo. There's all of these are from mostly the Virtual Console. In the case of a few things like female Venusaur, for example, in the original games in Gen 2, it's impossible to get a shiny female Bulbasaur. Same with the unknowns. Like, there's a few Pokemon in Gens 2 that you can't get as a shiny. And with Unknown, for example, because shininess is determined by determinant values, DVs, and the shape of the unknowns are also determined by the DVs. For some reason, the only unknown you can get with a shiny is the I and the V, which is kind of ironic because IVs weren't introduced then. And you obviously can't get question mark and exclamation point unknowns from Gen 2 because they weren't introduced until Gen 3. So in the case of Bulbasaur, Ivysaur, Venusaur, yes, you got your standard normal, shiny, normal, shiny, normal, shiny, but then you've got your gender differences. If you don't know your gender differences and what Pokemon have gender differences, and when I say gender differences, it's they have different forms, right? You got Venusaur there with no bulb on top. You see that? Well, your female Venusaurs had the bulb there, so that's a different form. So that's why we have them split up like that. But this one here, for example, the female Venusaur came from Viridian Forest in Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee. If you don't know what Pokemon have gender differences, go to Bulbapedia or Cerebi.net and just Google it. Gender differences, go to one of those two websites. The same with forms, boxable forms, and I'll get to them in a moment. We'll go through it. So obviously you got all the Pokemon here, and you just go through them. You got your Alolan, Rattatas, Raticates. You got your Pikachus. Again, Pikachu's got a gender difference, male and female. You got your Raichus with a gender difference, but your Alolan ones do not have a gender difference. Golbat and Zubat, I didn't realize had a gender difference. So you got the different size fangs. Gloom, different little dots on its head. Same with Vileplume, different dots on its head depending on gender. You got your Digletts and your Alolan Digletts. Same with the Dugtrio. You got your three versions of Meowth. So you got normal Meowth, Alola Meowth, and Galarian Meowth. But you don't have a Galarian Persian because a Galarian Meowth evolves, as we know, into Berserker. You got your best shiny from Gen 1 here, Psyduck. But yeah, we'll scroll through them. You got a few more gender differences. You got a few more form differences. So again, all of these Pokemon are me with the original trainer name. The only ones that aren't me as the original trainer name in the entirety of Gen 1 are the Galarian birds, the shiny versions. I think it was the start of 2022. They had a few events in Sword and Shield where you could participate in the international challenges like the online battling. You were gifted a shiny Galarian Articuno in February, a shiny Galarian Zapdos in March, and a shiny Galarian Moltres in April. And if you go to the Articuno here, sadly, yes, Crown is the original trainer name for that one. The Zapdos, it is wild, and with the Moltres, it's armor. So at this stage, you can't get a shiny Galarian bird with your name as your original trainer. And even in the Indigo Disc, they didn't introduce any Galarian birds at this stage in January 2024. There's no way to catch them in that game. And obviously, there's the shiny locked legendaries anyway, when the Indigo Disc came out, which was disappointing, but what can you do? Now, just with Mewtwo very quickly, Mewtwo you can get, same with the other birds, from Gen 1 and transfer to Gen 2 if you know what DVs you're looking for. Yeah, I've got another Mewtwo as well, a shiny hunted one in BDSP, which is nice. Mew, there's a few different Mews you can get with your name as the original trainer. This one specifically, this one came from the Pokeball Plus. This was the one when I bought Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu, got the Pokeball little controller, and you get a level, was it level 5? I think it was level 5, and I just trained it up into a level 100 Mew. There are a few other Mews you can get with your name as your original trainer, you know, the one from Emerald, which is the shiny one here, I'll show you in a moment. There's also the ones you can get from BDSP if you have save data of Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, you can get one from BDSP, and obviously the ones that they introduced as the event in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, which we used to take down the Mightiest Mark Mewtwo. The shiny Mew, I got that shiny Mew in March 2022, which is amazing. It was a few days before my sister's wedding. I was shiny hunting it on Emerald. If you don't know how to shiny hunt Mew on Emerald, there's a few ways you can get to the island, either with a glitch, I think it's the Pomeg Berry glitch, I think it's called, or you can inject an R4 item, the old C map, into the game, and then you can just make your way to the island and do runaways for Mew. I got so incredibly lucky with this Mew. This Mew here, I caught up to 3,701 encounters on the faraway island, I think it is. You have to run into it, see it, run away, exit the little forest it's in, go back, go right, and after a bit, you encounter another one, and you get another one. I was so happy I got that so under odds. This is 1 in 8,192 odds, the original game. So again, 207 boxable Pokemon you can possibly get with your name as the original trainer shiny in Gen 1, if you're including all the other forms and stuff. There are actually 4 Pokemon you can get as shinies, but you can't get with your name as the original trainer from Gen 1. Those are the Galarian Articuno, Zapdos, and Moltres, as well as the Partner Cap Pikachu that you can get from Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon. They were meant to shiny lock the Partner Cap Pikachu from Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon. They in fact didn't. So you have a 1 in 4,096 chance of the Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon Pikachu to be shiny locked. You won't be that unlucky, so most of the time you have a 1 in 4,096 chance to get the Ash Partner Cap Pikachu from Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. It won't appear as shiny because the model wasn't actually coded into the game, so you'll still get the sparkles. It just doesn't show up, even in Scarlet and Violet, as a shiny model, which is odd. So yeah, 4 Pokemon you can get as shinies, but not your name as your original trainer. And there are 0 shiny locks from Pokemon that come from Gen 1. Moving on to Johto, and it is my favorite generation, Generation 2. There's 0 shiny locks in Johto, which is nice, and you can get absolutely every Pokemon, both normal and shiny, with your name as the original trainer. So you got your starter Pokemon here, and of course we've got our Hisui and Typhlosion as well. I tried so hard to shiny hunt the PLA starters before massive mass outbreaks were a thing. I tried the distortion method, could never get a shiny to spawn. I ended up getting 2 Caesars in the snow level. What's that? The Alabaster Icelands. But I never got a shiny starter from that, unfortunately. So I had to just do the massive mass outbreaks, which was, you know, a welcome thing because my Switch was burning and overheating from doing that anyway, leaving the Switch running for hours on end, trying to get a distortion to spawn. Moving on, we got a few gender differences with Ledibar, Ledian. Azatu has a gender difference, Natu does not. Sudowoodo and Politoed have a gender difference. I didn't know that before I started shiny hunting them. You got your Apom with a gender difference, you got your Wooper. The Paldean Wooper does not have a gender difference, while the normal ones do. So you got your male Wooper there with with the longer ears, the 2 little spikes. The female Wooper only has the 1s, and obviously Paldea and Wooper there as well. Moving on, Murkrow has a gender difference, but I don't think Honchkrow does. And here we have the unknowns. So all the regular unknowns you see here, all the regular black ones, got them from Gen 2. But all the shiny ones, I did them in Oras. It took about 6 weeks. I think I got a screenshot here somewhere. But my god, it took a while. We're in the Mirage. Was it Mirage Cave? Mirage Island? Whatever it was. I had to get them all on there. 6 weeks of fun. But we ended up getting them all. It's probably the best game to still shiny hunt them if you can. I know when the online services go down for the DS that you might not be able to spawn in the Mirage Island, Mirage Cave, where the unknown are anymore. So if that's the case, if you're watching this in the future and you can't do that, then I guess PLA is your only best option. BDSP, I wouldn't recommend it. It's a bit too random. So PLA, probably a little easy for you, and you can probably get a shiny alpha one as well. Moving on, you got your Wobbuffets there with a gender difference, you got your Glygars, your Steelixes, you got your Quillfish, both normal and Hisuian, you got your Scizor with a gender difference, your Heracross with a gender difference, you got both Sneasels, both normal Sneasel and Hisuian Sneasel that have a gender difference. I don't think Sneasler does. Weavile, on the other hand, does have a gender difference. Teddiursa doesn't have a gender difference, but Ursa Ring does. You got your Piloswines with a gender difference, you've got your Octillery with a gender difference, that was one I didn't know until I did it, as well as Houndoom. Houndour doesn't have a gender difference, but Houndoom does. Donphan as well. Phanpy doesn't have a gender difference. Donphan does. And here we have your Lugias, your Ho-Ohs, and your Celebes. This was fun because you had to do 2 playthroughs of Pokemon Crystal on the Virtual Console on the 3DS. That was the only place you could shiny hunt them. You could get a shiny from the Zarude event, a shiny Celebi, but it was the Jungle OT. You couldn't get it with your name as the OT. With the Celebes, the both times I transported them from the games into Poké Transporter and then into Pokemon Bank, that's when the IVs are written. And I think it's a guaranteed 5 IV by the look of this, because that one is decent with 5 best. That one's very good with 5 best, so very happy about that. You get 5 guaranteed stats. Now moving on to Hoenn, there are 157 possible boxable shiny huntable Pokemon you can get with your name as the original trainer. 0 of the Pokemon here in this list that originally come from Hoenn are shiny locked. You can get every non-shiny version of these Pokemon with your name as the original trainer. The Jirachi, you can get a normal one in BDSP if you have Pokemon Sword and Shield save data on the same Switch. You can get a Jirachi that is shiny locked, but it will have your name as the original trainer. And Deoxys, so you can get a Deoxys from Oras at the post-game, the Delta episode, and you can obviously also get it from Emerald as well, similar to how you do the Mew, and you can get the shiny ones from there as well. I'll move on to that in a sec. This is the only gen that has an entire line, in this case the Torchic line, that has a gender difference. The Venusaur in Gen 1, the Venusaur was the only one of the Bulbasaur line that had a gender difference. The Meganium in Gen 2, that was the only one of the Chikorita line that had a gender difference. But Torchic here is the only one that has a gender difference for all 3. I don't think from here you can see the male-female versions of Torchic. It's a black dot on its butt. As you can just see under my head there, Combustion has a different feather length on its head. And then Blaziken's kind of hair is a bit shorter with the female, longer as a male. And again, this is where we're getting a lot of these Pokemon now from Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon. You can see the Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon logo, or the Gen 7 logo down next to the word English there. And most of these Pokemon you see here that aren't shiny will be 6IV. I was trying to get all the 6IV ones I could before actually getting the shiny eggs. So most of the shiny eggs you'll see are 5IV. Some of them might be less than that because I might not have bred a 6IV Pokemon in time before getting the shiny. This was a pain because it's random. You got your Wurmple that doesn't have a gender difference, your Silcoons and Cascoons that don't have a gender difference. But then you got your Beautiflies and Dustoxes which do, and it's all random, so you just got to be lucky, unfortunately. Unless you do the Magikarp egg swap method, which is what I did a lot. That's the way to speed up breeding in Gen 7. But you can also reject the egg, and then the next egg, or the egg after that, might also be shiny in Gen 7, and that's a way you can get the shiny again, but you can re-roll for genders. Makes it a little bit quicker. Lotad doesn't have a gender, but Lumbre and Ludicolo do. Same with Nuzleaf and Shiftry, but not Seedots. Nothing else in these few boxes have a gender difference. You do have Meditite, which has the male-female versions, just look at the ears on its head, as well as the Medicham, which has the smaller bulb on its head if it's female. Volbeat and Illumires are hard to get from breeding because they're similar to Nidorans, where you don't know what one you're going to get. No matter what one you're breeding, you might get a Volbeat, you might get a Illumires. I remember getting a double-up Volbeat before getting the Illumires. I don't even know if that's how you say the Pokemon's name, Illumires. That's how I've always said it. If it's different, oh well. Roselia, another one with a gender difference. It's a bit hard to tell, but look at its little front leaf, the green leaf there. That's the male version. The female version, slightly longer. Very subtle, but it is a boxable form, and that's why we had to. Same with the Gulpins with the different yellow thing on its head, and the Swallots, which have different size moustaches. Moving on, you got your Numels with a different size humps on its back, as well as the Camerups. People always joke, why don't I shiny hunt all the Spinders? Because it's impossible. Even if we got one every minute for the rest of my life, there's a billion of them. There's a billion normal, there's a billion shiny. It's going to take, too long. And we've only got 6,000 spots in Pokemon Home. We're already using more than 2/3 of it, which is, we're not going to do it, unfortunately. And when you view Spinder as well, even from here, or even when you go to here in the summary, it's the same sprite. I think it's different on the 3D models on the Pokemon Home on mobile, but in here, it's fine. So you know, we're not ever going to do that. Cacturn's got a gender difference. Look at its diamonds on its chest. You got no gender differences here, but a few good shinies. I love Zangoose. Moving on to the tail end of Hoenn, you got Milotic here that has a male and female gender difference. Castform is one of those Pokemon that have in battle different forms, but not boxable forms. So the other forms of Castforms that you might have seen floating around, the snow one, the water one, the sun one, you can't box them. So that's why you only need one. And there'll be other Pokemon like that in this list as well. Think Hero Form Palafin, that's in battle as well. But moving on, there's only one more Pokemon in Gen 3 that has a gender difference, and that's Relicanth. And I phased about 6 times before I got the rarer one. I think it's the female one, which is the rarer one. But if you look at its jowls, or whatever you call that on its neck, it's shorter as a female as opposed to longer on the male, which is nice. And then here, this is where there's a bit of explaining to do. So obviously you've got your legendaries, which I shiny hunted. Some of them, the regular ones are from Oras, I believe. Yeah, with a little pentagon. But the other ones were all shiny hunted from wormholes in Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon. I remember Latias was a pain. I think it kept recovering with Wish, so we nearly failed. And then obviously your Kyogres, your Groudons, and your Rayquaza. So we mentioned Jirachi before, the regular one, which is shiny locked that you can get from BDSP. But there's also shiny Jirachi. This one I shiny hunted this month, a few weeks ago. It's a placeholder. We were doing an RNG manipulation method with Pokemon Channel, trying to find the shiny frame and then using math to try and land on that. We ended up landing on it after about 1200 resets, which was nice. Here's the clip. Yeah! Yes! But I did feel a little dirty doing the RNG manipulation method. I'm happy I have a Jirachi here as a placeholder to fill the gap, but we will go back and we'll shiny hunt another one because I want to do it full odds with no RNG manip, 1 in 8,192. If you want to see that hunt, feel free to follow me on Twitch and hopefully we'll get it together and it will be one of the best shiny reactions, hopefully, we'll ever see. Now, Deoxys. Deoxys, that's the one you can get from Oras. It's shiny locked annoyingly. And then the rest of the Deoxys, 7 different playthroughs. 7 different playthroughs of Emerald. 3 playthroughs for the regular ones and 4 playthroughs for the shiny ones, which is fantastic. So we were getting really good at doing Pokemon Emerald by the end of it. So yeah, 0 shiny locks in Hoenn and only 1 Pokemon you can't get with your name as the original trainer, and that is shiny Jirachi. There's shiny Jirachi from Channel and shiny Jirachi from Pokemon Colosseum bonus disc, the Wishmaker one. And again, we're not including the ones you can get from Pokemon Go. I see that as a separate list, but you know, who cares? If you play the game and you have a mix of normal and Go, that's fine. I don't want to gatekeep. That is absolutely fine to do too. Moving on to Sinnoh. Sinnoh's very super simple. 150 possible boxable shiny huntable Pokemon you can get with your name as the original trainer. And there are 0 shiny locks from Pokemon in Gen 4. They're all shiny huntable. And you can get every Pokemon, both normal and shiny, with your name as the original trainer. Let's go through it. So Gen 4 has a lot of gender differences. None of these starters have gender differences, which is nice. But if you get to your Starlies, your Starravias, your Staraptors, your Bidoof, your Bibarels, your Kricketot, your Kricketunes, your Shinx, your Luxios, your Luxrays, a lot of gender differences to start off the Gen 4. Even Roserade has a gender difference there. You got your 3 Burmies. Basically, you can breed Burmy, and then you can change its form ahead of transferring it into Pokemon Home, which is good. But Mothim doesn't have a different form, so you only need 1 Mothim, but you technically need 3 Burmies and 3 Wormadams, and then 1 extra one for Mothim, and that has to be male, I believe, and the Wormadams had to be female, which is very fun. So I did a lot of breeding for them in Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon. Combi has a gender difference. The little red thing on its head in the middle is the female, and obviously those evolve into Vespiquen, which doesn't have a gender difference, but you can't get a male one. In Pachirisu, different little line on its head. It's a little hard to see, but if you zoom in, that's the male one, and the little line on its head recedes for the female, for lack of a better word. You got your Buizels. Buizels have a gender difference. You can't tell in Pokemon Home, but I think it's the thing on its back. And Floatzel as well has a gender difference, but I don't think we can see it from this angle. Again, Cherim has a different form in battle, but you can't box its other form, so you only need 1 Cherim. And you got your different forms of Gastrodon and Shellos. You got your gender differences for Ambipom here. And like I said, yeah, Honchkrow doesn't have a gender difference, neither does Miss Magius or Miss Magius, however you want to say it. Moving on here, you got your Gibbles with a gender difference, your Gabites, your Garchomps with the gender differences, as well as your Hippopotamuses and your Hippowdons. Oh god, Hippopotas, fun to say. Krogunk, probably one of the worst gender differences in the world. Ever so slightly, the bandage, the bottom bandage there, it's ever so lower on the male and a bit higher up on the female. Very hard to tell, and I assume that's the same with the Toxicroak. I can't remember what the Toxicroak one is. There is a gender difference according to Bulbapedia and Cerebi, so you need a male and a female. And then Finneon and Luminion and that, they have different tails, so you'll need a male and female versions for those as well. It's very hard to tell, although that one's easy to tell. Snova's easy to tell. The female has the extra white stripe on the belly, as opposed to that one only has the one. And Abomasnow has a different size sort of fur coat. Male is a bit shorter. Female is a little longer. And the Weaviles, the Rhyperiors, and the Tangros all have gender differences as well, but weirdly, Electivire and Magmortar do not. Neither do Togekiss or Yanmega or anything like that. And Mamoswine is the last one in Gen 4 that has a gender difference. Basically, the tusk is easy to tell the tusk difference there. The males is longer, similar to Donphans or Houndooms. So here's the start of the legendaries in Gen 4. I think I got this Uxie, yes, in Oras. You can see the Pentagon there. And then the shiny ones we did in Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon as well. Same with the Dialgas and the Heatrans. I failed a Heatran the first time I crit it in Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon. I was so sad. So yeah, the Giratina, the Palkia, and the Dialga have the origin forms, and you can run around outside of battle in Scarlet and Violet like them. But because it's an item and not a key item, when you transfer them back into Pokemon Home, they revert back to their normal. So at this stage, you can't have the other forms boxed. If you did, I would need another 2 Palkias, both normal and shiny, Dialga, Giratina, etc. Shaman, on the other hand, is a key item, so and it doesn't lose its form when you swap it into Pokemon Home. So you got your normal land form, Shaman here, and you got your Sky form Shaman here, which is handy. So you need 2 Shamans, or technically 4. And again, Arceus, you got all your plates, but because that's an item, you only need 1 technically. But who knows? Maybe they'll change it in the future and we'll need a lot more Arceus. But at the moment, I'm happy with 1 because it took 14,750 resets on BDSP, 3 times and a half over rods. It was not ideal. And obviously you got your Darkrai as well, which we also shiny hunted in BDSP. And obviously you got your Phione, I don't know how to say it. You can breed them with Manaphy. And then you got your Manaphies. You got your normal and shiny. This one was from Legends Arceus, which is shiny locked, and there's also the shiny locked one, the egg that you got from BDSP, which was shiny locked. This one was from Pokemon Ranger. This was amazing because Pokemon Ranger is one of the hardest ones to do because you need to have Pokemon Ranger, you need to get the egg off it, so you need to finish Pokemon Ranger, you need to unlock the code to get the Manaphy egg quest and then beat that, then you can transfer an egg to a Gen 4 game where it'll be shiny locked, and then you can transfer that to another game where it loses a shiny lock, and then you can hatch the egg, and if it's not, you can turn the game off without saving, and then create another save on another Gen 4 game and then transfer over back and forth. This one wasn't as bad. You can see how many resets we did here. The smaller number is how many times we had to reset the game, and the bigger number is how many eggs we hatched. We had 4 Manaphy eggs, and my god, very, very under odds. I'm very happy to rip that band-aid off and never have to look at it again. So yeah, 150 boxable shiny Pokemon you can get with your name as the OT from Sinnoh, 0 shiny locks, and you can get them all with your name as the original trainer, both normal and shiny. Now, Gen 5, Unova, there's a lot of Pokemon. There's 175 possible Pokemon you can shiny hunt with your name as the original trainer. It's amazing. There's a lot to do. And there are 4 shiny locks currently in Gen 5. There's Victini, there's the 2 forms of Keldeo, and there's Meloetta. And out of those 4, you can get them all with your name as the OT. And then there's Genesect. You can't get a Genesect at all, both normal and shiny, with your name as the OT. Now, Gen 5, this is where we have our first gap, because Victini is shiny locked, annoyingly. You can get a Victini with your name as the original trainer, and the way you can do that is in black and white. Not black and white too, but black and white. You can do the DNS exploit, the Wi-Fi exploit. Google it. You can do it right now in your games. Go to black and white, do the DNS exploit. You'll get the Liberty Pass to be able to sail to the island where you can catch Victini in the basement. It's shiny locked, but it's nice to have your name as the original trainer too. And we got that one in 2022, which is very nice, nearly 2 years ago. But yeah, here we go through Gen 5. So you got your starters here. There's no gender differences here, but you do have your Hisui and Samurott here. You got your Patrat, your Watchog. Why are they not in the games at all on the Switch? I don't know. Same with the Elemental Monkeys. Oh my god, I love them in Pokemon Concierge when I saw it the other day on Netflix. Very cute, but they're not in on the Switch either. And the only other Pokemon that isn't on the Switch is Furfrou. We'll get to that. You got your Mana, your Mashanas, you got your gender difference for Unpheasant, however you want to say it. Blitzel, great shiny, Roggenrollers and all that. You got your Lilligant, which has the Hisuian form as well. You got your Basculin, which you got your red stripe, your blue stripe, and your white stripe over here. And obviously we got the Basculegion paired with the Hisuian ones later down in the Dex. You got your Darumaka's here and your Darmanitans, which have different forms. They have different in-battle forms, but again, not boxable. You got your 2 Ymasks, the one down the bottom there, as well as the Galar in your mask. Moving on. Nothing else to see here, really. You've got your Dealings, which is nice. You got your 4 different Dealings, or 8 if you include normal and shiny, as well as your Swordspark. They were fun to breed for in Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, but obviously a lot easier now to get in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. Jellicent here and Frillish, gender differences, and it's a great gender difference. They do have different colors, which is nice, easy to tell. And nothing here, but like Tynamo, I bred this in Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon, and there's no shiny sparkles when you breed eggs in Gen 7. That was introduced in Gen 8, so I had to have my eyes peeled. Very hard to tell, and still very hard to tell in Scarlet and Violet as well. So thankfully, shiny sparkles cycles to make it a little easier in modern day games. You got your Stunfisk here, that's nice. You got your regular and your Galarian. You got your Ruffler and your Braviary, and then your Hisui and Braviary, which is cool. But then we move on to the legendaries. So you got your Gabalions, your Terrakions, your Virizions, but then you got your Tornaduses. And the Tornaduses, the Thunderuses, the Landuruses, and the Enamoruses all have different boxable forms because, again, it's a key item, not an item that changes their forms. So when you use the item to change Tornadus into Etherean, you can keep it in Pokemon Home. It doesn't revert, similar to Thundurus here. And weirdly, annoyingly, Landorus is split up between the box legendaries Reshiram and Zekrom and Kyurem. And again, you got your Keldeos, the two different playthroughs of Sword and Shield here to get the normal one, and then the one with Secret Sword to give it the different form in Pokemon Home. And then, more recently, Meloetta. We caught this in the Indigo Disc. It was a great way to find it. I loved spinning around, and then, you know, the sepia tone. I loved it. It's so fun. I hear it. There it is. That is Meloetta in the game that we can catch on our own. So this is Meloetta with me as the OT. The one I had before was the GF one, similar to the GF Genesect. And then there's Genesect. Genesect is the only Pokemon that you can't get from Gen 5 with your name as the original trainer. This one here is the GF one that I got from the 20th anniversary distribution in Oras. You can still see the pentagon there where it originated from. And then there's the shiny one you can get, but you can't get it with your name as the original trainer. Again, you can get it in Go. I haven't actually got one in Go, so that's something I might do. If I can get another one, I might put it here as a placeholder until such a day you can actually get it in the mainline games. The shiny Genesect that is here was given to me in a trade. It's impossible to tell if it is indeed one that came from the 2013 event in Japan or if it was just simply gent, but as far as Home is concerned, it's legit. So out of this entire list for Gen 5, the only Pokemon that you can't get with your name as the OT is Genesect, and obviously there's the 4 shiny locks there, the Meloetta, the Keldeos, and the Victini. Now moving on to Kalos, there are 120 possible boxable shiny huntable Pokemon you can get with your name as the original trainer. There are also 4 shiny locks currently. There's the Pokeball pattern Vivian, there's the 2 Hoopa forms, and there's Volcanion as well. We'll get to that in a sec. And there's also one Pokemon that isn't shiny locked that you can't get with your name as the OT, and that's Diancie. Both normal you can't with your OT, but also the shiny one you can't get with your OT either. And hopefully they redo it in Scarlet and Violet. Maybe similar to how we had Muse fighting Mewtwo. Maybe we have like Carbinx fighting a Diancie that we can catch. I don't expect it to be shiny huntable because, you know, nothing is in Scarlet and Violet, nothing cool is, so who knows? We'll see in the future. But moving on here, we got your Chespins back in the first box, and obviously everything else, the Fennekin's and your Froakies. Technically, there's the other Greninja, the Battle Bond Greninja. We got that in another box. You can't get that as shiny, so maybe I should fit that into eventually, but it's so much effort to try and move everything. Scatterbug's an interesting one, because Scatterbug, before the Teal Mask DLC came out, these Scatterbugs had 2 different forms in Pokemon Home. The ones that were destined to evolve into the Icy Snow Vivians, their eyes looked a different way. But ever since the Teal Mask came out, they reverted that, so you technically only need 1 Scatterbug now. I'm glad they did it, but at the same time, it was a cool little bug, and I kind of miss it, but oh well, what can you do? And then you got your Vivians here, Pokemon 666. So again, all of these were caught in Scarlet and Violet using postcards, obviously not the fancy pattern there. And then you got your Pokeball pattern Vivian here, which was an event back in the day. It's been 10 years. I think we're due for a Pokeball pattern Vivian event, and maybe a shiny one as well, just so we can plug that gap. It's pretty much one of the only Pokemon that isn't legendary that is also shiny locked, which is kind of interesting. And then you got your Flabébés, your red one, your yellow one, your orange one, your blue one, your white one, your Floettes, and your Florges as well as a few other ones like Skiddo, Panchamps, etc. Now Furfrou. Furfrou is kind of annoying because you can't get it on the Switch. Interestingly, if you trim them in Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, transfer them to Bank, look at them in Bank, and then transfer them to Pokemon Home, the Pokemon Home Pokedex will update, which mine has. So here, we go down to Furfrou, and here it is. Natural form, heart trim, etc. All this data has come over from Pokemon Bank, so that's cool how it sort of syncs up when you transfer it to Home, and also you got your shiny versions as well. So as far as the Pokedex on Pokemon Home is concerned, we have them all. We're just unable to trim them because it is not in any of the Switch games. Maybe in the next game we can finally trim our Furfrou and have our boxable different forms, but not yet at this stage. Moving on, you got a few other Pokemon, a few trade evolutions there, a few beautiful shinies. I love Tyrant and Tyrantrum, some of the best shinies. Same with Inkay, very beautiful, and I love the evolution method, turning the Switch or the DS upside down to evolve. It's weird you can't do it when it's docked, but of course not. You got your normal Goomies, as well as obviously your Sligoos and your Goodras, your 2 versions, your normal one and the ones from Hisui. And then interestingly, we know the more modern games have the different sizes on a huge size scale between 0 and 250 something, but Pumpkaboo and Gorgeist are kind of like the first ones that kind of pioneered that. They have literally different forms based on their size. Obviously your huge Pumpkaboo is there and your huge Gorgeist, which have a different cry. very easy to get the 4 Pumpkaboos or the 8 Pumpkaboos and the 8 Gorgeist. You just breed them. The size is passed down if you're breeding through a Ditto, so very easy to just Masuda them. Obviously, they're not in Scarlet and Violet, so you will have to do them in Sword and Shield. That's where I did them. It's a bit hard to tell. I'll move my head. You can kind of see the size change and get a little bigger every time you go up, which is cool. And again, you got Hisui and Avalugg, you got your Noibats, your Noivern, your Xerneas, your Yveltals. You do need 2 Zygardes. So if you're doing a Dynamax adventure and you haven't got your first shiny Zygarde yet, and you're looking for all forms, you're going to need to do 2. So you're going to have to do 2 playthroughs. You catch them both as the 50% Snake form, but then you can revert them to the 10% Doggo form there. My head's in the way again, but very cute. Obviously, you got Power Construct, which gives it the 100% form, but that's only in battle. So you only really need 2. Unless you want a third one, then go for it, I don't care. And then you got your Mythicals from Gen 6, which was Diancie and Shiny Diancie, which were events back in the day. Hoopa, I believe I got that one from, it wasn't the 20th anniversary, but it was around that time in Oras. Harry is the OT, which is kind of weird, as well as Volcanion, Helen from Gen 6 as well, which is, odd. Harry and Helen, I'm not sure what that's referencing. Let me know in the comments. But yeah, still shiny locks, annoyingly. And now we move on to Alola, and there are 94 possible boxable, shiny, huntable Pokemon you can get with your name as the OT from Alola, but there are a few exceptions. There are also currently 5 shiny locked Pokemon from Alola. There's Cosmog, Cosmoem, the 2 Maginas, and Marshadow. The Cosmog, Cosmoem, and the 2 Maginas, both normal and the one you get from Pokemon Home, you can get them with your name as the OT. So even the one from Pokemon Home, you can get with your name as the original trainer, which is amazing. Marshadow, that is still an event-only Pokemon, so you can't get the regular one with your name as the OT either, and obviously it's still shiny locked as well. And then out of all of Alola, there's only one Pokemon that you can get as shiny, but you can't get with your name as the OT, and that's Zeraora. We had the shiny Zeraora event in Sword and Shield a few years ago, and you were able to claim it in Pokemon Home. I guess that was their way of making more people sign up to Pokemon Home because that was new at the time. And annoyingly, the shiny Zeraora you get from Pokemon Home had Home as the OT. I know, one day we can shiny hunt it again, but I'm not holding my breath. We don't have any Gen 7 remakes for quite a while. Now we got Rowlets, obviously you got your Decidueye, your normal, and your Hisuian. You got your other starters there. You got, your early game stuff. You got your 4 Oricorios there, so very cool. What I did the SOS method on the first island. I got 4 of that Oricorio. I forget what form that is. And then you can just change, I think, with Nectar the forms, which is really cool. Rockruff is an interesting one. So physically, it is not a different form. They look exactly the same, but the Own Tempo ones, the Own Tempo is kind of registered by the game as a different form. So yeah, the Own Tempo ones evolve into Dust form, Lycanroc. Very easy to get in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. If you find an outbreak of an Own Tempo Rockruff, every Pokemon in that outbreak, every Rockruff in that outbreak will be Own Tempo. So very easy to find one. There's also a guaranteed Own Tempo Terra Rockruff in the Overworld, but you do have to do the date skip 2 times ahead to re-roll for it and hopefully shiny hunt it. Not worth it, I don't think. Now moving on, there's not many more gender differences left. There's only 2 more, one in Gen 8 and one in Gen 9. We'll get to them. So we don't have to worry about doubling up. You just have to get 1 of each, really. Here's Type Null. Type Null was very fun to shiny hunt. Not really. Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon, very hard to tell. Every time you do a soft reset, move slightly to the right to start your interaction with the person who gives you a Type Null. Very hard to tell because the resolution of the DS isn't the best. It took me a while to get the first one, but then within an hour, I got the second one. I was very happy. This is on 2 DSs. I'm glad I don't have to do it again. Now, Minior. This is where the 1326 number that we've been spruiking can come into question here. So there are 7 Miniors, right? You got your 7 different colors for the rainbow, but only 1 boxable shiny. It keeps in memory what core it is. So we go down to Minior in the Pokédex. That one isn't a boxable form, which is nice, the Meteor form, but the other ones are. And if you have the shiny versions of the colors, you're able to cycle through it in the Pokédex here. So boxable form, physically different. You only need 1. But to make the Pokédex happy, it's similar to Furfrou and similar to Alchemy coming up. You're going to need all of them. What's also annoying with Minior is when Pokemon Home came out, the 3D models on the Pokemon Home mobile version actually had unique shiny sprites for them. You can see them still on Bulbapedia. I really wish they reintroduced them when they were introduced in the Indigo Disc, but sadly there are only 1 color still, the black one. So, we'll have to wait. Hopefully they'll give them unique ones in the future. But right now, technically you only need 1, but also technically you still need all 7. Moving on, you got your Tapus here. You got your regular ones, which you couldn't shiny hunt in Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon. And you got your shiny ones you could shiny hunt in Dynamax Adventures in Sword and Shield. You got Cosmog and Cosmoem. These ones are from Gen 7. There was the gift one in Gen 8, I believe in the Crown Tundra, but that was also shiny locked, which is weird because Solgaleo and Lunala are not shiny locked, which is what Cosmog, Cosmoem evolve into. But currently, this is still shiny locked, which is, a little gap that's kind of annoying, but what can you do? You got your Ultra Beast, the Nihilego, the Buzzwole, everything else in this little list here, which is nice. And obviously, there's your Maginas, which is cool. There's a regular one, which you can get from Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon by doing the QR code once you become become champion. And here's the beginner you get for finishing the Pokédex in Pokemon Home. You don't have to have a living dex, just complete all the dex pages, you get that one. I'm never putting that in a game because I'm too scared to lose it from save files since you can't back up your saves on the Switch. So it's staying there forever, and hopefully we can shiny hunt it one day. Marshadow, that was the event one back in the day, and you can't shiny hunt it, and you can't get it with your name as the OT. And then you got your Poipole. So you got your shiny locked ones that you get in Sword and Shield, and then the ones you can actually shiny hunt from Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon. I don't know why they reverted it in Sword and Shield. Maybe it's something to do because it was a gift Pokemon. But yeah, it's one of the best looking shinies, isn't it? You got your purple Poipole, say that fast 5 times. Then the shiny one of the greatest shinies. Nagano, not as much of a fan as, but look at that, beautiful. And then, like I said, Zeraora, you got your original one, which was a distribution in USUM, and then your Pokemon Home one. And like I said, it is not you as the OT, which is kind of annoying, but what can you do? We got that when we did our Sword and Shield group raids, basically. That was a fun little thing, and I hope they bring something like that back where we get a shiny, but maybe give it to us with our own OT. I don't know. And then, yeah, technically Gen 7, so instead of 94, maybe we can say 96 for Meltan and Melmetal. And interestingly, they don't get the ugly G grey symbol on the box that they're in. I'll show you what that means. So, for example, the boxes that I've shown you so far, none of them have the ugly G from Pokemon Go in them. But if you go to Roaming Form Gimmighoul, for example, you can see that just here. Roaming Form Gimmighoul, where is it? Down the bottom, has the ugly G because it comes from Pokemon Go. But when you transfer a Meltan or Melmetal in from Pokemon Go into Pokemon Let's Go, it gives you the option to catch it in Pokemon Let's Go. So yeah, while the summary screen there, you can see the summary has the G right here. It doesn't actually show up on the box it's in. So if you want a Melmetal and Meltan that isn't technically from Go, kind of is, but isn't, transfer it through Let's Go Pikachu, and you won't have the ugly G in it. So right now, Roaming Form Gimmighoul is the only Pokemon in this main list from Pokemon Go, and also Shiny Locked. Now, Galar, this is a lot of Pokemon. 146 possible, boxable, shiny huntable Pokemon you can get with your name as the OT. A lot of them are Alchemy, but we'll get to that in a sec. There are also 8 Shiny Locked Pokemon at the moment. I've got a list here because it's starting to get long, but you got your Kubfu, your 2 Urshifus, your 2 Zarudes, your Glacier, your Spectria, and your Calyrex. And you can get all of those with you as the OT, except for the 2 Zarudes. They were for the Jungle event for the movie when it came out. And I think it was the Dada Zarude which gave you the shiny Celebi as well, the Jungle Celebi, to tie in with the movie when it came out. You had to be part of the newsletter distribution and then get the code. A lot of people missed out because they weren't signed up properly. I did, I was lucky, and hopefully they bring it out again in the future, and hopefully some shiny ones as well. And then the 3 Pokemon that you can get as shiny, but not your name as the OT because they were an event, was Zacian, Zamazenta, and Eternatus. We'll get to them in a sec. One thing I should point out in this entire list is any Pokemon that can Gigantamax, whether it be the Charizards near the start, or the Rillaboons, or the Cinderaces, or the Inteleons. I've given them all max soup, so any Pokemon that can Gigantamax, even the Pikachus, the Meowths, etc. When it comes to Alchemy, I've only given GMax soup to the first normal and the first shiny. So there's still 124 Alchemy I need to GMax, so there's a lot of raids I need to do still this year in Pokemon Sword and Shield. You need to do about 3 raids to spawn 1 Max Mushroom on the Isle of Armor that you can go and collect. You need to get 3 Max Mushrooms to be able to Gigantamax a Pokemon. So you technically need to do about 9 raids to Gigantamax 1 Pokemon. This is going to take us about 1100 raids this year to Gigantamax all of these Alchemy. I'll go back one because we missed out on Sinistea in that. So Sinistea, you got your regular ones and your Poltegeist. I got so lucky. So I shiny hunted these in the Glimwood Tangle in Sword and Shield before the DLC was ever announced. We were just doing them randomly. I think it's a 1 in 100 chance for a shiny authentic Sinistea to come up, and then you had to have the shiny odds on top of that. So the very first shiny Sinistea that came up for me in the Glimwood Tangle was the authentic one. The second shiny Sinistea was phony, and the third one was authentic, which incredible luck. I've seen people take years to do it like that. 2 weeks for me that took, and obviously you can do it a lot easier now in Scarlet and Violet, which is nice because I don't wish this hunt on anyone. And obviously you got your Poltergeist, your Sinisters as well, which kind of tie in with the Teal Mask stuff that we'll talk about later. Back to Alchemy, so there's the 7, I can't remember all the names of the swells, or the Rainbow and Vanilla and all that. You got your 7 of each swell, and then you got your 7 shinies. So these ones here are the shiny forms of that. Similar to Minior, there's only 7 shiny forms, but if you want to make the Pokedex happy, you got to have all of them to switch between normal and shiny for each swell. So 63 regular boxable forms and 63 shiny forms, even though there's only 7 differences. I bred these 7 in Sword and Shield, as well as all the regular ones I bred in Sword and Shield, but all the other shiny ones we did in the recent Milcery event in the Indigo Disc. Very handy with very easy shiny odds. My favorite, definitely the Rainbow Swell, the one that you have to evolve at dusk for like a couple minutes leeway in the day before it changes to night. And then we have your other things in Galar, like your Phalanx, your Pincurchin, your Snom. You got these things, which were your fossil Pokemon, which were full odds at the time. I think they still are. I think you can do them in raids now, but at the time I couldn't do them in raids, so you had to literally do them full odds. Normal, shiny, normal, shiny, normal, shiny, normal shiny. And here are the 3 Pokemon you can get as shinies, but not with your OT. So there was Zacian and Zamazenta, which I believe was in 2021, and then Eternatus, which I believe was 2022. Still can't shiny hunt them with your name as the OT. Weirdly, I know, Indigo Disc, I expected that. Same with the Cubfoos and the Urshifoos as well. I expected to be able to shiny hunt the Cubfoo and get an Indigo Disc. Nope, you can't. Shiny locked still. And same with, obviously, Zarude. Shiny locked, you got your normal Zarudes and your Dada Zarudes. Spectria and Glacier and Calyrex are all shiny locked. Regieleki and Regidrago were not, and they were not affected by the shiny charm in Sword and Shield either. So you'd have to do 4 different playthroughs. Once to get Regieleki, once to get shiny Regieleki, once to get Regidrago, once to get shiny Regidrago. So as you can see here, 4 different original trainer IDs. And then if you're looking at Pokemon that were introduced in Pokemon Legends Arceus, you got your Hisuian Pokemon, so you got your Weirdeer, your Cleavor, your Ursaluna, your 2 Basculegions because they have a gender difference. And similar to Jellicent in that, they have nice, colorful gender differences, which make it stand out very cool. And again, Sneasler doesn't have a gender difference, and Enamorus is shiny locked. You can get them with your name as the OT, but that requires 2 playthroughs of Legends Arceus. Similar to Thundurus in that you can change the form with a key item and then it stays boxed. And then if you want to be really pedantic, Ursaluna, the Blood Moon Ursaluna you can get from the Teal Mask, is shiny locked. It is interesting though, because if you transfer a shiny Ursaluna into Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, at least when the Teal Mask came out, you could cycle through the regular and shiny Blood Moon Ursaluna in the Pokedex, but it is currently, at this stage, shiny locked. No other way to get it. And finally, Paldea. There are 112 possible boxable shiny huntable Pokemon you can get with your name as the original trainer in Paldea, including some of the worst ones you've ever seen. Some of the worst shinies I think are in Gen 9. I'll tell you how many shiny locks there are in a second. Gen 9, it's ridiculous. I love Lechonk. Oinkologne, only gender difference in Gen 9. And I forgot to mention it before, the only gender difference in Gen 8 was Indeedee. But back to Gen 9, you got your starters, you got your Oinkolones, you got your Tandemaus. Took me 6 months to get this. 186 days, 333 shiny Tandemaus. Yes! Yes! I mentioned it many times on this channel. I don't want to ever see this goddamn mouse again. One of the worst shinies you can ever see, especially with the poor lighting in Scarlet and Violet. You got your 4 Squawkabillies, very cool. Not much else in terms of form differences around this area. Oh, Clorf, great shiny. Relor, great texture. Again, Palafin, you can't box the hero form. So the Palafin with a little heart on it, the big, muscular one is not a boxable form, so it doesn't count towards our 1,326 total. 3-segmented Dunsparce. For those who didn't see the 3-segmented Dunsparce video, this one, I got first encounter within 30 seconds of making first sandwich, and it has the rare mark. Is that it? Is that it? You can't actually see the marks on the Switch version, I don't think. But if you look at it on the mobile version, shows the rare marks. So one of the rarest Pokemon you can ever get. And then obviously you've got your Paradox Pokemon. You got your Scarlet ones, your Violet ones. Here's the roaming form Gimmighoul, which is shiny locked. And obviously it's the only one currently you can get from Pokemon Go, and you can't get it any other way. So you do have to deal with that ugly G, unfortunately. Over here you got your Gimmighoul and your shiny Gimmighoul chest form, and then your Golden Go and your shiny Golden Go. Hopefully we can catch them one day as well, instead of relying on 1 in 4,000 whatever raids, because that was a pain, having to rely on other people. But, that's what Pokemon is all about, right? And then you got your Shiny Locked Treasures of Ruin Pokemon. You got, obviously, Iron Valiant and Roaring Moon here. Very nice shinies. And then Shiny Locked Koraidon, Shiny Locked Miraidon, Shiny Locked Walk and Wake, and Shiny Locked Iron Leaves. Difflin, I love it. One of the best Pokemon. And I think it's the first Pokemon that has a shiny move difference as well, which is cool. And then, obviously, you got your two forms of Poltergeist here. It's hard to tell here, but if you go to the 3D model, you can definitely tell. As well as your Sinistra as well. Bad shiny, but fun to hunt nonetheless. And then you've got your Archilodon and your Hydrapples, which were fun to hunt in the Indigo Disc, but that's the only ones I needed, apart from all those alchemies when the Indigo Disc came out. And then everything else here is shiny locked. So you got your Okidoki, your Muggidori, your Pheasantipity, your Ogerpon, which is only having 1 boxable form, which is nice. You got your Gouging Fire, your Raging Bolt, your Iron Boulder, your Iron Crown, your Terrapagus, and your Pekkarunt. So for those playing at home, there are 19 shiny locked Pokemon currently in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. That is unprecedented and a bit annoying. They'll probably release a few as shinies, similar to how they did Zacian, Zamazenta, and Eternatus, but, I want to hunt them with me as the OT. That's what most of these are, unfortunately, but, one day in the future. So yeah, 19 shiny locked Pokemon in Paldea, including Roaming Form, Gimmighoul, Wuchien, Chimpao, Tinglu, Chiyu, Koraidon, Miraidon, Walking Bake, Iron Leads, Okidoki, Muckidori, Pheasantipity, Ogerpon, Gouging Fire, Raging Bolt, Iron Boulder, Iron Crown, Terrapagus, and Pekkarunt. Annoying. And again, every Pokemon mentioned here in Paldea in Gen 9, you can get with your name as the original trainer, which is amazing. Roaming Form Gimmighoul, you can't get as shiny, obviously, but you can still get it with your name as the OT, obviously, when you transfer it from Pokemon Go. And to finish it off, we have the Hat Pikachu. So I got all these in Sword and Shield, except for the shiny Ash Hat Pikachu. It's not meant to be shiny huntable. This is regular one. That shiny one. You can see the shiny sparkles just there near the top right. same model, even in Pokemon Home, even in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. It is what it is. Maybe we'll get a model and a shiny of all of them in the future, but at the moment, 7 of the 8 Hat Pikachu, or Cap Pikachu, are shiny locked. And that is the end of the main list. I have started making a separate list for Pokemon Go Pokemon, for the ones originating from Pokemon Go. I think it's, you know, a separate list, but I don't want to gatekeep. If you have Pokemon Go Pokemon within your main list and consider it as a main list, that is fine, because we're all playing it our own way. You're not hurting anyone. As long as you play Pokemon and enjoy it and hurt no one, then you're doing it right. So, in summary, assuming you're counting all of these Pokemon in Dex order, like I've been, there are 207 boxable shiny Pokemon you can hunt with your name as the original trainer from the Kanto Dex, 156 from Johto, 157 from Hoenn, 150 from Sinnoh, 175 from Unova, 120 from Kalos, 96 from Alola if you include Meltan and Melmetal in the same gen, 146 from Galar, 7 from Hisui, and 112 from Paldea. All up, this gives us a grand total of 1,326 boxable shiny Pokemon you can hunt with your name as the original trainer. Just to clarify, none of the fused forms are boxable either, so no Kyurem, no Necrozma, no Calyrex, etc. This also counts for Mega Pokemon, which aren't boxable either. They're just registered in the home Pokedex automatically. There are 11 Pokemon that aren't shiny locked, but you can't get with your name as the original trainer. Those were the Galarian Birds, Jirachi, Genesect, Diancie, Zeraora, the Galarian legendary trio of Zacian, Zamazenta, and Eternatus, and the Partner Cap Pikachu that you can get and shiny hunt from Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon. So 11 Pokemon, not bad. Now in terms of the shiny locked Pokemon, there are 7 from Kanto if you're just including those 7 Pikachu that are still shiny locked. There's the 4 from Unova, there's 4 from Kalos, 5 if you include the Ashra Ninja, there's the 5 from Alola, there's the 8 Pokemon from Galar, there's 3 from Hisui if you're including the Blood Moon Ursaluna, and finally in Paldea there are 19 shiny locked Pokemon. So currently, all up, January 2024, there are currently 50-ish shiny locked Pokemon. Again, if you include Ashra Ninja in there, that can change, as well as GMax Melmetal. The Melmetals you transfer from Pokemon Home, you can't give GMax Soup. There was only one event where they gave you a GMax Melmetal, but that was shiny locked, so you could add that to the list too. But yeah, that's the end of my rant. That is a lot of Pokemon, so I hope this list helps you in terms of ordering your decks. It's very fun and very nice to look at once it's all put together, but as soon as they add another form and you have to squeeze it all in, it does take a few hours sometimes to reorder your boxes, especially with the Tauros there. That took a while, as well as the Woopers, because at Gen 1 and 2, I had to move a lot of Pokemon just to fit those new Pokemon when Paldea came out. A lot of people do separate the forms into different boxes, and that's actually what I've done for Pokemon Go. I've separated the Alolan and Galarian forms into different boxes, which makes it easier, so maybe I'll change that in the future if it gets too tiring. But if you find this video helpful, leave a comment, ask me any questions you want about the shinies in this video, and if you have any questions on how to shiny hunt something, let me know on here or in the Discord, or come to Twitch. We've got a good community on Twitch, and hopefully we can help you out shiny hunt something that's been on your mind for a while. And again, I'll be shiny hunting still. I'm going to shiny hunt another Jirachi with full odds this time, and we can, you know, give this one away on stream. So if you're not following, twitch.tv/Hylianstagram. But enough waffling. My name's Hylianstagram. You can call me Matt. And as always, may all your shiny hunts be quick. Take care.